when I was 10 years old, my dad died of cancer and he was 44. I do have this written down as a really well rehearsed story that I would deliver on stage, but I'll be a bit less formal right now and not try and make people cry quite as much. But the reality was that life was difficult, and it's difficult when a parent dies and you're young, no matter what happens. But the aftermath of my dad's death was very much a good experience from a financial perspective, and finances lead into what your home life is like. So the fact that my dad had taken financial advice a couple of years before he died, and that was by virtue of the fact he was the managing director of the company he worked at, that he had that privilege of having the experience. He had the right level of life insurance because somebody had really forced him to think about what happens if you die. There was no reason to think he'd have a shortened life expectancy at all. He didn't know what was around the corner. He didn't have any ill health at the time. But he did think about, well, what would happen if he was earning a good amount of money as the MD of a company. My mum was a stay-at-home mum, and he just appreciated the fact that she hadn't been in the workplace for 15 years. She had three children, and what would life look like? So he insured himself for the right level of capital payout, and he also changed the benefits on his pension scheme to maximise the death benefit for the benefit of my mum, because I think he appreciated that the trajectory of his career meant that they'd always be fine so long as he was alive. But if he wasn't, then there would be a financial issue. And sadly, 2 years after that point in time, he did die. But the consequences of what he'd done meant that, we didn't move house, we had no mortgage, mum didn't have to go and find a job. She didn't have to rush into a relationship, which is something I can see fairly commonly. I work in a bereavement charity, well, I volunteer in a bereavement charity for children in the town that I live in, which covers North Herts and Stevenage. And I see so many examples of surviving parents that have to work double shifts. They can't then support their children in the way that they would like to. They can't give them that continuity of picking them up after school each day, giving them that sounding board of "how was your day, darling?" and let's talk about what's happening in your life. And that is vitally important when you're dealing with the aftermath of a person's death.
Mm.
So as horrific as it was, and it's a really unpleasant thing, and I didn't have actually, I could talk for hours about this, but I didn't, mum was there, but we didn't speak about it so much because we didn't want to upset one another. So I didn't really have that outlet of what to do, which is why I do the volunteer work. But financially, it gave some level of stability that at least I didn't feel a physical detachment from my mum as well after my dad had died. And you just don't know what's around the corner. So not only had my dad died, I then subsequently have a sister that's diagnosed as schizophrenic, and another sister that's got multiple sclerosis. So they've had their own challenges, which meant my mum had to, support them more than you would ordinarily support your children. And the foundations that were there because of what my dad had done meant that my mum could support them more than would have been the case as well. So it was after about a week of being in that Wolf of Wall Street type environment of office where I was cold calling that I connected the dots. And it sounds daft that I'd never really thought about it before, but it was after a week where I realised, hang on a second, I'm trying to get in touch with people because I want to speak to them about a financial plan and having life insurance and other insurances. And it was very much an insurance-driven sort of pitch, if you like. And I realised, well, my life would have been completely different. And that was when I was 27. And that then became my superpower because I knew every time I picked up the phone and I called a stranger, I could have a positive impact on their life. And so that was then what just gave me the fuel to I beat all the records in that company. I was like Teflon, and no never stuck with me. I just carried on going. So yeah, that's what sits behind my motivation.